volume versus quality, or is it volume and quality?
Our day-to-day has to be integrated with that process where, everything that we experience, it's a data collection process to then go and put your message out there.
People need to redefine what is quality for them. What are the resources that I have at hand? And then how am I going to stick with this?
There's a layer of how happy you are or how enjoyable is that for you to create.
There is great benefit to creating and putting your ideas out into the world.
What platform? What format? How long?
Critical thinking, my friend. Critical thinking is extremely important. And when you hear something, whether that's coming from us or, any other expert out there in the world, you need to do your due diligence, do your research, and challenge some thoughts.
Hey guys, welcome back to Content is Profit. I'm here with Fonzie today, and we have a very special episode. He prepared a couple clips that I have no idea, things in the industry, things that are happening in the entrepreneurial and content world. Maybe.
You don't know what it is.
I don't know what it is. I'm just speculating. But I'm excited because I think it's the first format we've done something like this. So go ahead, Fonzie. Let me know. What's the plan?
These are clips that are going to help you understand better the creative process. They're going to help you become a better creator, not just by listening to this, right? But maybe by listening to this, listening to our opinion or takes, and most importantly, you developing your own opinion. Critical thinking, my friend. Critical thinking is extremely important. And when you hear something, whether that's coming from us or, any other expert out there in the world, you need to do your due diligence, do your research, and challenge some thoughts. Some of them, of course, you're going to listen and you're like, you know what? I agree with that. But, actually, I was a little tangent. I was watching this YouTube video from this guy. I love his videos. It's all about learning, how to learn better. Okay. And he talked about a book called The Socratic Method, which is something that has been, out there for a very long time, since Socrates. I don't know the timeline on that. But what Socrates used to do is he used to go out on the streets and then he would start to question people. He's like, oh, why do you believe this? And why? And blah, blah, blah. And just get people to think. And a lot of the times people will get upset and all that stuff. But the thing is, he had a method to question ideas, which helped him learn better and learn deeper. So that's kind of the point I want to go with this. It's kind of our own Socratic method, right? The Content is Profit method for learning, which is we're going to play some clips of what some, thinkers out there in the podcasting world have to say in the content world, and we're going to question those, right? Do we agree? Why do we agree? Why do we disagree, etc.? And then you listening, you can do the same. You can go ahead and do your own Socratic method on this. Why do you believe this? What would happen if I didn't do that? What would happen, if I did this thing consistently?
Yeah, I love that. I'm excited. I mean, I've seen a lot of clips lately, obviously, with politics coming soon to the United States. A lot of it that comes to me is on that route. And it's funny because the people that kind of know their topic and they are open to discuss, which, we're very blessed to live in a country that you can express yourself, have a conversation, but the people that don't know their topic or they might not even know what they're talking about, they're just, repeating like parrots the message, they either get angry, they reject the other person's conversation. So I think it's important to have this discussion from personal level to business. So I'm excited. Let's go.
Yeah, I think this can be a new Content is Profit segment.
Let's do it.
I mean, we snipped a lot of stuff.
We do snip a lot
on a regular basis, so we can snip them, put them in here, and then come and do the Content is Profit method of learning, aka the Socratic method. All right, so clip number 1 is from. I forgot the name of the podcast. Oh, How I Write. The name of the podcast is How I Write by David Perell. And he's talking about some of the best lessons he's gotten.
Oh, I thought you were going to just send the clip line and then give me some context after.
I'm not giving you context. I'm just giving credit, pretty much it. So again, the clip is from How I Write from David Perell. This is a clip where he's sharing some of the best lessons that he's gathered from some of the guests that he had. And this one specifically is with Tim Ferris. Everybody, if you don't know who Tim Ferris is, he's a really big author, huge podcaster.
Yeah.
He's been in the content game for a very, very long time. So
his book was one of the first books that
I
inspired me to pursue this crazy life of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, you might have heard his book, The 4-Hour Workweek. Again, Tim Ferris, somebody that most people would argue that he has a big, big influence in the content world. So let's hear what he and David have to say on this.
Perfect.
I was researching for the episode. Out of the 4 top Kindle books of all time, you know what they are? They're the ESV Bible, the 1-Year Bible, 4-Hour Body, and 4-Hour Chef. Those are the top 4. He has 2 of them, and the other 2 are the Bible. So when I talk about outputs and what he does, I think it's worth listening up.
The quality level has to be incredibly high, which is a constraint I'm happy to always embrace.
Of course.
Right? I don't care about volume. I just do not care, because there's no competitive advantage there. You're going to lose to the robots. You're going to lose to the people using robots. If you think you're going to win on a volume game, long term, you're not going to win. At the very least, if you're doing it manually, you're going to burn out. So for me, at least, the quality, by my standards, needs to be incredibly high.
I was researching for the episode.
So
out of the
that
4
was clip number 1. Volume versus quality in a nutshell, right? He does share. Obviously, the context you could hear was a little bit about books and whatnot. But
Was I gonna react, or you gonna
I'm
keep
curious.
reacting to your own clip?
No, I'm curious. I mean, you see me grinning in here.
I know.
You know, I'm smiling because I
He dedicated this clip to me 100%. So, for those that are maybe new to the show and haven't had the chance to interact with me or Fonzie, Fonzie leans heavily into the quality, over the quantity, and I lean a little bit more on the quantity over the quality. Well, first of all, Tim Ferris, GOAT of the industry. He clearly 2 of the 4 top downloaded books are his. So, authority, 100%. I obviously like the message of the quality. Here's my personal opinion on this. I like the quality. I like the quantity first, because it allows us to put in the reps to get to the quality, right? And again, given the context of, go back to our publishing pyramid, right? Your resources, the capacity of those resources, your commitment to consistency, and your message, right? It's really hard to get to quality if we don't put in the reps in all 4 of those departments, or have the resources to hire somebody that can help you produce the quality, right? So again, I wonder, and again, I'm not familiar with maybe the background of Tim on like how many books or ebooks or guides or things he published before he got to the quality of what he's putting out today, right?
He has hundreds of podcast episodes too, So
exactly. So to that point,
let's put it in the way of like create.
Can I finish my thought?
Yeah, I just want to frame something real quick. Like creating, not just like popping on camera, is like the act of putting your thoughts out in a structured piece, right? Whether that is writing, video, etc.
But I still think even the act of putting your thoughts in a structured thing, you still need to put in the reps. Or
of course,
it's gonna either take time, or it's gonna take a great team to put something of quality out there. And at the same time, we can get into the weeds on this 1,000%, but it also is like, what is quality, right? Because, we have an example of this physics professor that has millions of subscribers on YouTube, right? Which the quality production, I'm doing air quotes, right? It might not be the best. It's literally one Zoom camera on a Zoom call, and he's doing the lesson on a whiteboard, but the quality itself of the content is really high for his audience because he's solving people's problems, right? So again, we have to define that for yourself in what that looks like. And can it be better? CBB, right? Yes, absolutely. It can always be better. We can always strive to get better.
Yeah.
I think and to close my personal thought is, I think we need the quantity first. And as you go, depending on what part of the journey you're in, strive to improve that 1%. And maybe that 1% is your message. Maybe that 1% is hiring a team. Maybe that 1% is learning how to restructure and create a message that gets better over time. And then what happens is, like, with time, once you put in the volume, then you can take your time and create less but way higher quality. That's why, movie theaters, like, I'm moving the movie theater.
So
right?
I'm going to go with this. I'm going to go with it's like a Bruce Lee. I think it's Bruce Lee saying, right? Which is, actually I'm going to butcher it totally, but I know it kind of comes from Bruce Lee, but it's the practice is 10,000 kicks, right? Mm-hmm. So if you want to be a master at one thing, like practice it like 10,000 times, right? Mm-hmm. But what if those 10,000 times that you practice it, that you think they're the quality thing, like they're bad. You're practicing the wrong kick, right? And then you go and show up and you're like, oh yeah, in a fight, and you like kick somebody's toes, and it's like, okay, like that didn't work out. So my point is, when you're starting, by just doing volume specifically, sure, you're training to maybe don't care the fact what other people are going to think, and you're putting your message out there. Mm-hmm. But is it actually a good message, right? Is it actually a quality piece of content? I think I agree with you on the sense of, first you need to understand where you're at, right? Like, what are your resources at hand? Is your resource only your own time? Or do you have your teams as well, time as well, that they can invest into, helping you produce research, etc. A lot of things. A lot of these people have obviously teams that help them with the research and all that stuff. But my point being is, maybe that volume, I agree with the fact that you need to put yourself out there consistently to practice, but I don't think many people have a frame of what quality is for them. So then they go into social media and they're easily influenced by, a really cool video with very nice graphics and stuff. And they're like, oh, that is quality. That is the quality I need. But it's like, no, maybe the quality you need is like this professor that you're talking about, which has zero production, but he has a quality message. The quality for him is value. Like, his way to measure quality is something that is going to solve a problem. Mm-hmm. So then he creates a content, filters that through that lens. If the answer is yes, is this solving an immediate problem that my audience has, I'm going to talk about it. So I think people need to redefine what is quality for them, right? And different quality is going to take different resources. I agree with you. You need practice on consistency. Mm-hmm. And again, there's different type of consistency too for different platforms, right? Like, it can be like Alex Hormozi, which he talks about just putting your immediate thoughts, right, out and then test it to see what people like and then do a bigger piece out of that. It's not a one size fits all type of deal, unfortunately, right? Because if it was, it would be pretty easy for everybody to just follow that recipe. But I think the creator needs to understand themselves, okay, what do I consider quality? What are the resources that I have at hand? And then how am I going to stick with this? Because for them, it might be, the type of content that they're creating, it might be something that most people just produce, let's say, 2 of those pieces a month, right? So for them, volume might be, let me do 1 of these a week, right? Rather than any other week. So now their volume on that is already bigger than kind of like the average on that industry, whatever people are producing. But then you got to filter that through that lens of quality of what you mean.
Yeah. I think I wrote here, like, what is the type of content we're applying this for, right? So, for a book, for example, right? Like, what's the specific thing that's going to live forever, right? Yeah. It has a longer shelf life than maybe a Facebook reel or a YouTube short. Right?
Which is actually the example, the context of this conversation.
Exactly. The same other thing was... Twitter. There's people that have built their audience and their communities off of X, for example, right? And then, so for them, 1 tweet might mean that they have to do it like really, really good to make sure that they continue to publish up to their current standards, right? To get better, right? So look at your own platforms. Like, where are you online right now? Is it the podcast episode? Is it Twitter? Is it LinkedIn? Is it LinkedIn articles? Is it a newsletter? Right, at the end of the day. And I think something that we haven't really mentioned is the feedback loop on this quality over quantity, type of content. So if the feedback is positive, perfect, dig into that. Like, continue to explore that. If the feedback is different, as in your piece of content might not be helping these people solve their problem, whether that's being entertained or being educated, right? Then we have to revisit and pivot a little bit and see how it goes. On top of that, I think there's a layer of how happy you are or how enjoyable is that for you to create, right? Just early this morning, I was on a call with this person that her favorite type of content to create is vlogs, and she started vlogging inside of the country that she's in. Then she traveled a little bit, and she got tired of it. She was like, I'm not really enjoying this process anymore, and she's shifting the approach to her content because of that reason. So I think, personally, I would not like to be creating something that I don't enjoy creating, right? So I think like we just had a great time in this specific podcast, interviewing the people that come to the show, having these discussions, because it's our day-to-day. We love what we do. Some days more than others.
It's gonna be part of your competitive advantage. It's doing something that you enjoy doing, because then it won't feel like work.
Fun fact, the other day, Friday, I had a call with somebody in Spain, and we're doing a little bit of a consult for like them guesting, and they've never heard the show. They've heard feedback of people that have heard the show or that maybe know us in the industry. And the first thing that he says, like, guys, like, I absolutely loved your last episode. I think you guys are so casual, so relaxed. It's very different from whatever I've listened to. And I'm like, dude, thank you so much for that piece of feedback. Like, it's hard for somebody to tell you that feedback straight on, and I'm very happy that it was positive feedback. But maybe there's somebody there that don't like that type of content. You know what? Well, maybe in this stage of life, maybe that's not the person that we should be around, right? So, I think those feedback loops are important, because guess what? Now, my fire is back up. Let's do more of this, right? Let's leaning into our personalities a little bit more, because it's going to help us get those reps, and we're going to get better at the craft of creating that piece of content. So anyways, good discussion.
Well, I have two closing remarks from my side. So the first one is, I believe your commitment to quality increases with the flow of volume of your audience. So the more you start attracting people with your ideas and your content, I think your commitment to quality has to be higher. And again, I'm not talking, because I think people confuse this, I'm not talking about quality of the production necessarily.
Yeah.
It has to be the quality of the ideas that you're putting forward, right? If a lot of people are listening to you, like, I think you have just a responsibility to, want to be better, want to improve at your craft, and a responsibility to relay quality ideas that solve the problems of the people that are listening to you. And the second point is, and he kind of mentioned, he's like, if you play the volume game, you're going to lose by robots, right? And that is my other point, which is a lot of people are using tools such as AI and whatever. This is another topic. You can go to previous episodes. We've talked about it. But, they use a lot of tools to craft volume, right? And I agree 100% with that he has to say, right? Sure, it might put you in front of new eyeballs, but again, like, is it good? Is it gonna have resonance, right? We talked about it.
Is it something that you'll be proud to share with your mom?
Exactly. Is it gonna be? Are you gonna be proud of sharing this stuff? Yeah, with your mom, with your close ones. But again, and I think that is a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Because first, it can actually cause, in a way, a potential harm, right? Just putting random stuff in there, and then the other one is, if you're an expert, because again, content is profit is mainly for expert-based businesses or services. And if you're an expert and you are outsourcing your thinking to AI, what is that going to say about you and your business, right? Like, I think, me personally, I see that online, and if I notice something is written by AI, in a way, it's a little bit of a turnoff, right? I'm like, well, sure, like, maybe I'll read the hook, and that's it, and then I'll move on to the next person. But I think my trust towards that expert might diminish because of, again, the way it was produced. I truly enjoy, and I can tell when somebody puts effort into crafting a piece of work, into sharing their idea.
Yeah, I love it. All right, I think we have time for the second one.
All right, and the third one, they're good. They're good.
Yeah.
This one, I think
We
this
have
one
only
was,
time for one more.
this one was the spiciest one. They'll be quick. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, dude.
No, I worry about it. I have a call that I need to
Next
go.
one. The next one is from actually Tim Ferris' podcast, but he was talking to Seth Godin. Seth Godin is a marketing legend. If you don't know who he is, go check him out. He has great books about marketing. One is called This is Marketing. I think The Purple Cow.
They can Google it.
Yeah, multiple books. So on expertise, people would say, I listen to this guy, I do whatever it is. But again, we're here to challenge ideas and learn. So here it goes.
What do you get from writing and having written as consistently as you have and do? What is the payoff? Like, why do that?
Okay, so the biggest payoff is simple, not in terms of equity, stock value, but in terms of the noise in my head. The biggest benefit is I will be writing tomorrow because it's Friday, not because I've written the perfect blog post. That every single day, something gets published by me because I decided that 24 years ago, not because I have reconsidered each day whether this one is good enough. Mm-hmm. And even if no one read my blog, I would still do it. And I'm very fortunate that people give me the benefit of the doubt, knowing that I am not guaranteeing this is the best thing I ever wrote, and they're still willing to look at it. So that's lovely. In terms of my professional practice, again, back to genre, having a sinecure, a platform where for a long time, if you type blog into Google, I was the first match because I just showed up more than just about anybody. There's a lot of value to saying, this is my lane and you can count on me in this lane. And for someone who is as peripatetic as I in their creative pursuits, having one of those.
What are your thoughts?
I mean, I'll say that there it goes. Like somebody else, right? Talking about the power of consistency, be present every single day from a personal level to a professional level, right? I related to not only our story, but a lot of people that had come to the show that they owe to be online and to kind of take that identity of a creator, right? And putting their thoughts out there consistently. They owe a lot to them, like the business, the team, the family. It's like so much to it. So I resonate a lot with him, and I think it comes from within. Like it's a decision that we have to make today as business owners, and to be at peace that maybe one of those pieces is nobody's gonna read it, nobody's gonna listen to it, right? I personally think that we're okay with that. Like you and me are okay with that. I don't think we were okay with that 5 years ago, right? When we were in publishing.
Yeah.
And I think today a lot of people are there and they see the creation process or publishing process as a last resource, you know, or Hail Mary thing that they might be doing to save their business or different things.
Yeah.
And I think that might not be the best place to start publishing. So that's what I can take, you know, from the 30 seconds that we just listened to.
It was like a minute and 15 seconds.
Cool.
Your time perception might be a little off.
Very off. Very off.
The reason I picked this one is because in a way, I feel like somebody could, you know, hear to this and say, oh, but this is contradicting to the previous one that we heard about, right? But I think the fact that he said he's been consistent for 24 years, first of all, impressive. I don't think it necessarily means that he's not creating quality work, right? Like, I think the question is, can volume exist with quality? Can volume exist with quality, right? And in his eyes and in his actions and what he's published and also in his proof, in the result, the answer is yes, right? Because he publishes, I don't know if you guys are familiar, he has a newsletter and then he sends you that blog post that he writes every single day. They're not like 10,000 word blog posts, all right? Like they're not massive. They're short. And he prides himself on like being able to deliver strong ideas in short blog posts, right? Yeah. In a simple way. And that is part of the craft. That is part of what he has improved on in 24 years of sharing his ideas. So I think it goes back to kind of like what I was sharing about what is your lens for value, right? Mm-hmm. And also what is the consistency of that industry, right? In a blog industry, the blogging niche, it might be one a week, right? Let's do one blog every single week. Well, he said, I'm going to commit my consistency to be one a day for perpetuity. It seems that way, mm-hmm. right? But then the question is he sacrificing quality for the purpose of that volume? And I think the answer is no, right? He actually, in the episode, right? Obviously, that's not in the context of the clip, but he goes back and he edits his post. He tries to make them smaller. He said, I only send a blog that I can only make shorter. If I have to expand into something, I do not send that one, right? And he probably has, I'm sure, a backlog of things that he's creating. So, again, this is a challenge for you. What does your consistency looks like on the medium that you want to create? And can you make quality coexist with that volume that you want to be sharing? And then the other thing that he mentioned that I absolutely love, because I think this is something we've talked about at the very beginning that we started Content is Profit, he separated it for both, right? He's like, right, my own personally is the noise in my head. And we started saying from the first couple of episodes, it's like, wow, it's a great feeling when you get your ideas and you put them out into words, right? You start realizing a lot of things. Yeah. Do I truly believe this thing that I'm talking about, right? Maybe you thought you really knew a specific topic, and when you start talking about it, you realize like, wow, actually I do not, you know? So there is great benefit to creating and putting your ideas out into the world. And then business-wise, his consistency and his quality, both together, not just one independent of the other, build him that reputation, right, of being Seth Godin.
Yeah.
Like, if you read his books, a lot of his books, too, are kind of like a mesh of all the ideas that he's written, of his blog posts. Kind of like Tim Ferris, right? A lot of his books are a compilation of the interviews and lessons that he's gotten from the interviews that he's done on his podcast. So they're definitely multi-purposing their content in different ways. Yeah. But I think sorry, before you go on, like, I love the fact that he challenges that notion of like, it's one or the other, but it's actually both. But he knows his lane. You don't really see him creating, bunch of shorts or reels, right? He knows his lane, and he's like, I'm going to build on this medium, and I'm going to be the best at it. I'm going to be more consistent than others, but I'm also going to deliver more quality than everybody else.
Yeah. There was an element there that when he was talking, and you mentioned it too, it's like the time frame, right? Like, under what lens are we looking at this? Like, under the lens of like short-term, last week, last month statistics, or are we looking at it into this is a long-term game that we're making a conscious decision and a strategy that we're gonna be doing this for the next few years, right? And it's like, I remember because everybody talks about Alex Ramosi, right? Like, when he hired his internal YouTube team, he was like, I'm going to work with you for the next 5 years, right? And it's like, this is a long-term thing. We're going to get better. Like, we got to receive the feedback and understand. So the impression I get with a lot of the conversations that we have, either online or people here coming to the studio, is that they really want a quick fix to a deeper issue, right? They're like, I think publishing or putting content out there is going to help me solve this. It is a piece of the machine, right? And then we have to uncover that, and at the end of the day, it's a piece of the machine that's absolutely necessary for to endure in this decade. I think every company, we mentioned it, every company needs to publish their own message, right, and consistently. And again, podcasting might be the medium, blog might be the medium, YouTube might be the medium, but it will take time and experimentation. So I think like that, and creating the containers of or the margin, of what platform, what format, how long, right? Mm-hmm. Make that decision, make it move. Like he is like those short blogs and the newsletters. For us is the podcast 3 to 2 times a week.
Yeah.
Either an hour conversation or a 30-minute solo episode, right? Like what are those margins that you can execute and get better in that format?
Yeah.
Good. I liked it.
All right, I'm going to play the last one. I cannot play this one by itself just because it ties into the conversation that we're having today. So
5 minutes.
Here it goes.
You got 5 minutes.
This one is, again, from How I Write with David Perell. It's a conversation that he's, not a conversation actually, he's making an episode on Jerry Seinfeld. And he is actually showing an excerpt of a conversation between Howard Stern, the radio host, and Jerry Seinfeld. So that's what we're going to listen right now. And then we'll go ahead and, share our awesome opinions.
You went to a Chinese restaurant. And you're like, I really admire Chinese people because they're really sticking to this chopsticks thing.
The line is, I like how they're hanging in there with the chopsticks.
Right. Because they've seen the fork. They've seen the fork.
Yeah. We've got it, you beat.
Yeah.
But they're going, no.
To me, this is a brilliant observation.
Thank you.
Yes. Now, when you had that observation, were you sitting at a Chinese restaurant, and can you go to a Chinese restaurant and not sit there and work on material?
I'm never not working on material.
So
ever.
even when you're sitting with your wife, you're sitting with the kids, it's material.
Every second of my existence, I'm thinking, could I do something with that?
It sounds like a tortured life. And you say it's not.
It is. But you know what? Your blessing in life is when you find the torture you're comfortable with.
See? That.
All right.
I liked it.
You see, and you wanted to skip that one. All right. What are your opinions? Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I love that you picked a comedy-ish context clip because I've been obsessed lately. And I honestly been learning a ton from comedians, right? They put in the time, they put in the reps. It might be the same joke that they say the same night 5 different times, and different audiences say the different thing. I think also he speaks to the creator in you, as in our day-to-day has to be integrated with that process where, everything that we experience, everything that we see out there, or the company itself, right? It's a data collection process to then go and put your message out there, right? In Jerry's case is comedy. It's like, what's a situation that can turn into material for a business, right? It could be failed experiences. It could be lessons learned from a call of a client. It could be a conversation between business partners. Like what are those moments in your day to day, right? I think a lot of people think the impression again in the last few years is when people come to us like, well, we have this designated time to think and create about content and what's their strategy and what's their content calendar thing. And the truth is, in like today's world, I believe that we have to look through the lenses of that message, right? So whenever we come here in the studio, for example, if we have a conversation with a customer, there might be a lesson there that we get to share in our podcast, in a reel, on something. We're talking earlier about the football show and the YouTube content, right? Like we're looking at Dude Perfect YouTube channel, and they're doing this like jump competition. We're like, how do we apply that in the football context, like a similar video, right? Like, so, and at the end, like that phrase of the torture, find the torture you're comfortable with, is for some people that might not be their thing, right? And they will see it as a torture, but he puts it in the context of like, that's the thing that you do 24/7 and that you enjoy, and that's why you do the thing that you do. So anyways, obviously Jerry is a master of his industry and a master of his message and his craft, and there's a lot to be learned from that. So my question to you listening or watching, like, are you comfortable finding that torture? Like, know that if you want to be a creator, there has to be a big element of that day to day that you have to be looking through the eyes of a creator.
Yeah. I think let me start actually by saying, when we first found consistency was when we did the 45 Live, which in a way, we were applying what Jerry was talking about right now, which is we needed material every single day for 45 days in a row.
Yeah.
And when you are under that frame, you start observing things differently, right? And asking questions like, oh, what did I learn today from this conversation, right? Or, what is something that made me think differently from this other person or this experience or this piece of content that I watched, right? Mm-hmm. And what you're doing is now you have volume in your ideas, right? Not volume in your content. And that is what he's talking about. Like, he is consistently doing volume of ideas. Now, yes, he tests them, right, in shows, but then he has the winners, which is the ones that he do at his specials. And I think that also relates to creating content as an expert of something, right? Which is you need to consistently be having that volume of ideas. Or Mossy talks about he published his volume of ideas on Twitter. For him, Twitter is more like a log, right? It's not like his main frame, his main road, like Seth Godin's blogging. Alex or Mossy, I would say, is YouTube right now at the moment. But Twitter is his idea log. And that is where he has all this volume, right? So I think that is an important distinction. Do we have a volume of ideas versus volume of content created, right? Because just like you mentioned, right? You just mentioned right now too. I forgot, I lost my train of thought, but you kind of like mentioned about, loving that torture, right? Which is if you're in a business, that is your competitive advantage, right? The fact that you see something that you want to do consistently without having to be on a schedule. And you're like, a lot of people take creating as, all right, I'm going to take this time of the day and I'm going to do everything in there. From the ideation process all the way to the production. No wonder you can't get anything done, right? Because there's so much friction. Yeah. But if you have a volume of ideas, and we talked about this on the previous episode, right, with Joe yeah. on the idea collection. Framework, how you're like consistently saving ideas, writing ideas on your notes. When you get to the moment where you're actually sitting down and creating, right, because Jerry Seinfeld has his practice every single morning. He sits down on paper and writes down. He writes. You can have that same practice for video, podcast, whatever. But he's not sitting down to come up with the idea. Again, he's observing the world under the lens of how can I compilate as many ideas as possible? How can I generate all these ideas? And then when he sits down, he implements those ideas in there. And it's the same for the creative process, right? So find your torture in this, in the sense of find something that you are okay thinking about. It doesn't have to be all day 24/7. But for the majority of the day, you're going to be thinking about it, right? You're going to be looking at things and then asking yourself, how can I apply that? Or you're going to be reading something and you're like, I have an opinion about this. I would like to create a piece on this. That's exactly how this podcast episode was generated, right? I was listening to this podcast, gather notes, and I was like, this would be cool to discuss in one of the episodes. Yeah. Right? And now this is the creation moment for us. Right, and we have an established creation moment for the podcast, which has allowed us to stay consistent throughout time on a higher consistency than most podcasters do as well. Yeah. Right.
And full context, by the way, like we're supposed to have somebody in today, and the time of this recording is Labor Day. You know, we like to work in holidays, which is great. But that person was not able to join us today, and we're like, guess what? We are committed to our consistency. Let's go to the data collection bank. Fonzie does a really good job at it. I'm more of a casual, like, I thought about this earlier. Let's talk about that. Fonzie has a more systematized system, which is fine, right? And then this is what we came up with, right? And I think it has been a really good episode where, we show a different version or a different format. This is the first format that we do that. That's the full context of the creation of this. This was not planned in a session a month ago, right? At the end of the day. It could be, like, if it does well, maybe now we put it as a layout of episode that we can work with the production team to continue to elevate, right? And move forward and get it better. So I wrote here, volume, almost like the equation of quality content, right? I don't know. Maybe you agree or disagree with me, but some elements, right? Volume of ideas, test/publish, gather feedback, elevate, and then repeat. And then over a long period of time, like we said, your content will become better, will solve problems, people will find it attractive, and you continue to move forward.
Yeah. I think for me, the key takeaways, right, putting all these 3 lessons and comments together, right, is put on the lenses so you can create a high volume of ideas, right? And make sure you're writing them down, because you can have a good idea and 5 minutes later you'll forget it. So have a process to writing your ideas down, right? Obviously that comes hand in hand with embracing the torture that you feel comfortable with, right? If you're doing something that you truly enjoy, it's going to be easier to put on those lenses and get ideas on a consistent basis.
Yeah.
So again, higher volume of ideas. Then is defining your consistency, right? From Seth Godin, he said, I'm going to do this every single month. Defining your consistency and in which lane, right? Just know that defining your consistency and in which lane is going to require you to look at your resources. Is it your own time that you're spending creating this, or can you leverage other people's time and abilities and skills to create something? And then lastly is defining what is quality for you, right? We go back to the physics professor example. He's solving a very specific problem for his audience, and the quality of his video is absolutely nowhere near the best, but the quality of his message is absolutely outstanding.
Yeah.
So for you is, what is quality? Define it. And after you have a finished product piece of content, look at it under that lens, evaluate it, and say, okay, this ticks the boxes. I can publish this. And if it doesn't tick the boxes, it might be because you might be rushing the process, just creating content for the sake of creating content. And unfortunately, that content will have very little resonance with your audience.
Yeah.
And it probably won't do good. And again, I challenge you. I would love your opinion. What are your thoughts? Volume versus quality, or is it volume and quality? Which one is it, right? Like, how do you look at this? I'm extremely curious. I think there's definitely multiple points of views. This is a debate that's going to be happening for a long time, not only between us, but, I think in the creator community. And there's not a one size fits all. So I'm curious to see what has been working for you. What have you been doing? And how are you going to increase maybe both the quality and volume of your content?
Yeah, let us know for sure. I love this episode, man. I love this format. Thanks for bringing it on. You took it definitely from the football show format that I did earlier, but just saying.
I don't know. I didn't hear
Maybe
it.
subconscious.
Nope.
No,
Nope.
I can't take the credit for this. It was all fancy. Guys, let us know again in the comment. With that said, thank you so much for tuning to the Contents Profit podcast. Go ahead and follow the show in your favorite podcasting platform and on social media at BizBrosco.
That is right. If today's episode helped you become a better creator, please don't forget to share this episode. And of course, don't forget to leave a 5-star review. See ya.
Bye, guys.